Hello everyone, this is Jacek. Welcome to my second English tutorial. I know I promised you more of those, but I have been really busy lately. But just to compensate for this, I wanted to record a full portrait retouch of this photo I have here. This is a photo I took of Olga, the model, during a Nikon fans gathering, and this was lit. Let's see the eyes. This was lit by one speedlight with round flash dish, one round flash diffuser, and all the links to the backstage of this photo shoot are in the description of the video, as well as the modifier if you'd like to purchase it. Okay, so this photo has a lot of things going on. First of all, a lot of pretty pink flowers matching the shirt and the lips. With this one, this was quite tricky because I usually develop the photo as flat as possible just for retouch, and then I add the contrast and color grading and everything. But in this case, I wanted to start with colors first because they are so prominent in this picture. First of all, let's just bring down some highlights just to recover some more details in the face of the model. Maybe bring up the shadows a little bit because we will be adding a vignette later, so we will be darkening those parts, but I want to retain as much information as possible from the beginning. Now let's play with the white balance. I know I want to go with kind of cyan looking greens, so we will be doing some modifications to the colors in the HSL tab, but also in the camera calibration tab. The difference between HSL and camera calibration is that camera calibration, if you change something, it defines how the program will read the raw data from your camera, so the raw colors. If you shift anything here, you will be shifting the original colors from the raw data, so the behavior is a bit different because in the HSL tab you are influencing already rendered colors from the camera. So if you change the profile of the camera, then you can play more with the hue, saturation and luminosity tab. However, I did the opposite way and of course I started with the HSL. And as I mentioned, I wanted to go with a cyany bluish greens, so I went to the hue tab and pushed the greens all the way to the right, as well as aquas and blues. This will give me a much deeper blues also in the eyes, but we will cover that later. But I wanted to cover all the shifts in colors, all the gradients in the leaves, because we have three predominant colors here. So we have the green, the pink and the skin tone along with the hair, so it would fall somewhere in the orange tones. Let me first also go to the saturation because the greens are now too saturated, so I wanted to darken the greens a little bit. Let's play with the orange also because I want to shift the skin tone a little bit towards the pink side, but I also want to shift the magentas a little bit towards a more purple tone. So we are just playing with the colors here, but if I undo the selection, you see how much difference it makes for the leaves. But before we go any further, I forgot to straighten the picture in the first place, so let me just crop it as it should be. That's better. So let's go to the hue saturation tab further. We can of course bring down the aquas and blues as well. And just a tip for you, if you have too much saturation in your picture but you want to bring the skin back to its normal state, you can just desaturate the oranges a little bit. And also I want to maybe darken the oranges. No, I want to make them a little bit lighter, but I want to darken the magentas, yeah, because it will bring down all the flowers and the shirt. And I don't also want to desaturate it a little bit, because if I bring it down, the darker the color gets, the more saturation it retains. So let's see, yeah, something like this. But I also would like to push the leaves a little bit further and play with the color a little bit more. We could do a little bit more tint in the overall picture just to subtract the greens a little bit, but we will go to the camera calibration tab as well. And here we can bring back those colors in the face by playing with the red hue slider. So we will do, or maybe, you know what, let's push it a little bit to the left. Don't desaturate that much. No, we have to go, yeah, to the right on the blue channel, because we will push the leaves a little more and we will saturate it a little bit more. Perfect. Now we brought back some saturations to the picture overall. Let's check the before, if it loads, and after. Okay, perfect, but we have too much color overall, so I will go to the vibrance tab and bring it down a little bit. Perfect. So this is my before and after. I brought back a lot of information from the picture. The vignette will be added later, but I am happy with the colors that I have now. So to be honest, I did most of the color work already in Lightroom. I will add at the end some slight blue hue to the shadows to cool it down just a little bit more, but I also will bring back the skin to a more warm feel into Photoshop. So let's right click and edit it in Photoshop. Okay, so we have our picture open in Photoshop. It's a 16-bit TIFF file. It has a lot of information, color information in it. So first thing that I want to do is just retouch the photo. So I will duplicate the background layer just to have a reference underneath all of the layers I will make. And first thing I do is the liquefying, or it is the last thing I do. It's either the first or the last. It's never somewhere in the middle, because we will be doing some dodging and burning, and you need to have your liquefy done at the very beginning or at the very end if you are working on so many layers. Okay, I just wanted to push those hairs a little bit. Something in this arm, I want to push it back. Okay, just minor changes, nothing drastic. Let's apply it, and we have just before and after a slight shift in the hair and in the arm. Okay, and now the fun part begins. So for portrait work, I do not use that many layers, and I usually limit my skin retouching to a healing brush. I'm not using frequency separation for a skin that is already a little bit soft. So this has been shot on 85mm, I think on, let's check, on 1.8, so it's as soft as possible for that lens. And the thing I want to do is just clean up the skin, so I will use the healing brush, not the spot healing brush, the healing brush. And as you can see, I have it at a 45-degree angle and flattened a little bit. It helps me get around edges a little bit easier than a round brush. So I will do my retouch on the skin just simply by sampling with Alt key or Option on a Mac and replacing the texture. So anything big that I see, I think I am zoomed in a little bit more than I'm used to be honest. I just see more details than I should. It is better, to be honest, to retouch at a lower percentage, at a lower zoom, sorry, because the more you zoom, the more details you see that you would like to remove. But honestly, it's never good to flatten the skin, so you need to leave some things untouched. But I am going around just a little bit, removing some blemishes. Okay, I will speed it up so you don't have to see everything I retouch, so see you in a second. Okay, so I have my skin retouched. It didn't take long, but you need to take time to remove some blemishes. So you have before and after. There was some green leaves on the chest here, so I remove just some little specks like those. Now I want to remove this part of this partition or whatever this is in the hair, so I will go to the stamp tool. I will make it something like this. It will be not maybe 100%, but let's make it 70 and simply copy and paste. So for things that are just like copy and paste jobs, the stamp tool is much better than the healing brush tool, because the healing brush will calculate the texture and will want to blend it together using artificial intelligence and machine learning. But with stamp tool is copying one-to-one, of course. So if the area you want to remove is very small and you have a perfect source material that you want to copy from, just use clone stamp tool. With hair, I feel like clone stamp tool does better job, because the healing brush tool will make some rough edges. Also, I would like to remove some stray hairs, so I will zoom in a little bit more. I will rotate my picture by using the R shortcut, but now I will use the spot healing brush tool because it does a very good job of removing stray hairs. Just paint over the stray hair you want to remove and it will do a perfectly fine job, especially for portrait work. For beauty images, it may be better to use maybe frequency separation for stray hairs, but for portraits it doesn't have to be that complicated. Okay, perfect. So we have this one removed. And now that we have cured the skin, let's say, so removed some blemishes, I will create a dodge and burn layer. So I want to create a new layer, D and B, and I want to blend it in soft light mode and fill it with 50% gray. This will give me a basis for dodge and burn. Some people use a blank layer and use white and dark and black brush. It gives you more leeway between nothing and complete whiteness or blackness, let's say. But I am very used to using the dodge and burn tool and just working on a gray layer. Whatever fits your workflow, that's the best way you can retouch, because don't let anyone tell you what to do. You need to try it yourself and just be comfortable with what you do. And also, I want to focus only on the tonal changes, not the color. So I will make a solid black layer with blending mode color and add a curve layer with lowered luminosity. Let's group those together, and now I have a helper layer which will help me see the shifts between light and dark better. I am eliminating color altogether, so I am focusing only on the differences between shadow and highlights. And I will work on my gray layer now. I make my brush a little bit smaller, and my pressure sensitivity isn't set for the size, it is set for controlling the amount of the effect I have with the pressure. So if I press more, I have more of an effect. If I press less, I have less of an effect. That's easy and simple. Okay, and now I will go over the skin and just smooth out all the things that I think needs to be smoothed out. And again, this is, to be honest, the most important part of any retouching, and the amount of time you spend on dodging and burning will reflect on the quality of work you will be providing, because even the best frequency separation job will not be as good as a perfect dodge and burn job. So I will go over my skin like I did with the healing brush. I hope you understand the dodge and burn principles. If you don't, let me just show you quickly. This is the gray layer. I have the dodge and burn tool activated. I have it set on dodge right now, and whenever I go on the layer with my brush, I am just lightening it, and if I hold down Alt or Option key, I will be making it darker. So let me just reverse those changes. Let's go back to the picture, and I will also speed things up by just skipping this part, but you just need to go look for things like, for example, here on the forehead. It looks darker than the surrounding pixels, so you need to lighten it up. To be honest, you should start zoomed out, something like this, because first of all, you need to be retouching the bigger parts, not the smaller parts. If you retouch the bigger parts first, you will have less work to do later. So let me just retouch whatever I can see that needs retouching, like for example here on the cheek, here underneath the cheek, around the lips, stuff like this. It comes with practice that you notice things that you want to remove or not. So simply practice as much as you can, and if you practice dodge and burn the most, it will be beneficial for you. Okay, so see you in a minute after I've done my retouch. Okay, so I finished my local dodge and burning, and by local I mean working on the details. This is the mask I have created, and this is the difference it makes. As you can see, it smooths out all the small imperfections and shadow and light on the face. Also, I want to address those shadows underneath the eyes, and you should never remove shadows like with the clone stamp tool. You just simply lighten them. So you go with the dodge and burn tool, and by tool I mean any dodge and burn technique that you use for dodging and burning, and you simply lighten those shadows to the point that you are happy with them. So let's say this is the effect I want, and it's before and after. So the skin structure is untouched. We simply just removed the shadows in the corners. Now what we need to do, because when you are lightening very dark areas, you will lose some color. So we need to create an empty layer, change its blending mode to color, And now simply with the brush, just activate your brush with the B key. Let's set the opacity at a lower value. With Alt or Option, you simply sample the color and you paint over the areas that are a little bit gray after the dodging and burning. It's as simple as that. The only thing is you need to watch out for very dark areas, because you may saturate those areas too much with this method. Now, one thing I also like to do when I see a little bit grayish eyebrows, I also like to sample the skin color, and on the color layer I just simply go over the brows a little bit, and then they blend with the skin a little bit better. As you can see, more gray, more brown. It just makes them look more natural. Okay, the next step we need to do is work on the lips. They are a little bit dry, so the best way possible for removing something like this would be either frequency separation, but as I mentioned, we don't want to make too many layers, so we will go simply with the easiest method, which is a small spot healing brush. If the texture will be a little bit strange, then we can go with the regular healing brush, but when the spot healing brush is used very lightly, so with a very small diameter, I think it works pretty well and you can rely on it. So we just go on the lips and simply go over the dry skin that's left. Okay, and now also we can go on the color layer, grab the brush and simply copy the color of the lips, make the brush a little bit smaller, copy the color of the lips, let's make the opacity a little bit higher, and just paint in whatever color has been chewed off. Oh, sorry, we went over the teeth. So let's add a little bit color in the corners because the lipstick is gone there. So let's add a little bit color. And now we can go back on the dodge and burn layer, make the brush a little bit stronger and simply work on the lips a little bit, because we see a lot of light and dark areas around the lips. We will make the lips look more natural and healthy by doing so. So let me just go over it a little bit, just before and after, a little bit over here, and let's add a little bit more color again, just to smoothen out all the transitions that we made. Okay, perfect. No one will be looking at this picture at 200% zoom, so we can go before and after. And as you can see, those are really small changes, but they make all the difference. This is the base that we can work with. Now we will be doing some more light sculpting and play with the colors or the focus of the image. But before we do that, let's go into the eyes a little bit and maybe work on the color layer, and let's maybe pick a really nice light blue color. This is too strong, definitely is too strong, and add just a little bit of color to the eyes. Perfect. We can go even with an eraser tool with the low opacity and just subtract a little bit, not to have it too much of an effect. Perfect. So we have blue eyes, pretty blue eyes, and now what we will do is play with dodge and burn again, but this time instead of correcting the skin texture, we will be sculpting the face. So I want to create a new layer again, D and B, and create a soft light blending mode, fill it with 50% gray again, and now the brush I will be using will be much bigger, and what I want to do is go over the sides of the face a little bit on the cheeks. Let's make it a little bit smaller. Now I want to lighten the triangles underneath the eyes and a little bit maybe down the nose and on the chin and on the upper lip. We can always zoom in a little bit closer, and we can also enhance the highlights underneath the nose and around the lips. And what we also can do is darken the sides of the nose to make it appear a little bit thinner. So what we did now, when we see the mask, I hope you can see it, it's a very small adjustment, but what we did now is sculpt the face a little bit. If we want to double the effect, we can simply copy the layer one over another, and we will have this effect double. If we group it, you can see before and after, and that's how you play with shadow and highlight. And by having everything on a separate layer, the great thing is that you can always lower the opacity if you think that the effect is too strong. So this would be perfect for me. And now let's do the same for the hair. So let's do zoom fit the screen, but with hair we will do a curves adjustment layer. We will invert the mask to complete blackness, so simply click Ctrl or Command I on the white mask next to the curve layer icon. And what we need to do is simply grab a white brush. We have it set to white, and now just choose a size, choose opacity, let's say 30, and simply paint in all the highlights that are already in the picture. So if you see a lighter part on the hair, simply go over it and it will enhance it. We are just enhancing the highlights and deepening the shadows, so it is creating a more of a 3D effect on a 2D picture. Now if we go before and after, you can see that it brings out the hair a little bit more. Now I can also go over the top of the head, and we will create another curve layer, but this will be for burning. We will also invert it, select the white brush, and just go over the areas that we think that need to be more in the shadow. So we're just simply going over the areas that are already darker than the highlights on the hair. And that's quite simple. You don't need to be precise. It's just small adjustments that you make, but it makes all the difference. Okay, perfect. So now we have the face sculpted, retouched, the hair dodged and burned. And now what I would like to do, let's simply remove the helper layer. I would like to add a vignette. So I will go to the curves layer. I will bring down the entire picture in lightness, but I will not invert this layer. What I will do is go to the gradient tool, select the regular gradient tool, go to the circular option up top, and what you want to do is select the second preset. What it does is goes from a color, and if we switch the colors here from foreground to background, it will go from the color to opacity, because in this case it goes from black to white. So anytime you make a change, it will create a black circle, but everything else will be filled with white. With this one, you will create black circle, but everything else will be left transparent, so you can create multiple black circles on one canvas. With this one, every time you go through with the gradient, you will always create a single black circle with everything else filled with white. So we go with this tool, and now we simply go over the areas that we want to enhance and want to draw our attention to. We don't need to have the edges as light as the face, so the main focus will be the face. And here we can see before and after, and yes, I darkened the face a little bit more before and after, because I think it was a little bit too bright. I was losing some information in the highlights. So the mask itself, when you click with older option on it, looks like a dark cloud. And if it's enabled, it creates an irregular shape for the vignetting. So it is not like a standard darker corners or whatever it is set as default. It will be something more unique for you. So we have before and after. And you can see how much more attention it brings to the face of the model. And as I mentioned before when we were in Lightroom, what I want to do is add something blue in the shadows just to cool down the picture entirely. But what I will do is go to the selective color, go to the black tab, and we could go with the yellow and simply subtract a little bit of yellow. So the opposite of yellow is blue. This is the cyan, magenta, yellow, black, so the CMYK, but the opposites are RGBs, so red, green, blue. But I also want to add some yellows in the highlights, in the whites, so it will bring back warmth to the skin. And with this we can also go with the gradient tool, and if we think that there's too much of the blue effect on the skin, we can simply remove it by drawing some circles. And if it's too strong, we can always lower the opacity. But at this point, I think I am happy with the result that I've achieved. And just let's see the before and after of the Photoshop edit. Let's save it. Now we can go back to Lightroom, and now we can also compare directly the before and after of our edit. Thank you very much for your time. I hope that you have enjoyed this video. I know it was a little bit long, but I wanted to show you all the steps that I did for this particular picture and my thought process, because with this I first worked on the color and then worked on the skin retouch, which is usually the opposite that I do with my other work. I hope you enjoy my tutorials. If you do, please leave a like and comment. I will try to do more of English tutorials in the future, so you can subscribe to the channel and be up to date with everything I do, and hopefully we'll see each other soon. Bye!